Hello everyone, this is Vanessa at the Hideaway Homestead, and today I want to make a super easy French bread with you. It's very versatile. Our family enjoys having it with soups. We also like to make it ahead of time and make it into garlic bread, and then we just keep it in the freezer for when we need it. If we ever end up with having any extra French bread, we like to make it into croutons, or you can also grind that up into breadcrumbs. But before we get started today, if you could please like, share, and subscribe our channel, that would greatly support our family. So today we're going to need just a few simple ingredients. The first thing that we'll start with is some simple tap water. And then I will get some active dry yeast from the fridge. You can also keep it in your freezer just to keep it fresh. From there, we'll need some sugar, flour, oil. I like to use olive oil. You can also use vegetable oil or any other oil like canola oil or something that you have on hand, and a little bit of salt. Later on, when we're ready to bake the bread, it's optional. You can add a little water and egg white as an egg wash, but you don't have to do that. So let's go ahead and get started. So to start, we're just gonna need 1 cup of room temperature water. And that should be good enough. So now we want to go ahead and add our water to a large bowl that we're going to be able to mix our dough up in, and we need to go get our yeast from the fridge. And for the yeast, we're going to need about 2½ teaspoons. So some people like to stir it in. I normally just sprinkle it in and let it do its thing. And if you need to go look for the recipe or the ingredients, we will have that listed below in the YouTube notes, and I'm sure we will have it on our blog post at thehideawayhomestead.com. So now we have our water and our yeast, and we just wait for about 10 to 15 minutes. This is normally where I go to do the laundry or wash the dishes while I wait. So now our yeast is fully absorbed, and we can start adding the rest of the ingredients for our dough. So I normally like to go ahead and start with my sugar, and I'm gonna need 2 tablespoons of sugar. And that will just help our yeast and give it a little food to get it to grow. The next ingredient I'm going to go ahead and add is 2 tablespoons of oil. In this case, I'm going to use olive oil. And then I like to go ahead and add about 2 cups of flour. We're going to add about 3¼ cups of flour normally, but I normally start with 2 cups and then add as we go. And I normally like to spoon the flour in as we are measuring it, and then just level it off. That's 1 and 2. And then the last thing that we're going to need to add at the moment is 1½ teaspoons of salt. And I always like to add the salt last. I'd always heard that it can affect your yeast, so I normally like to do that last. Okay? And then we can go ahead and start stirring. I like to use a good, heavy, strong wooden spoon. And this one's actually one that my husband made me out of maple. And I have not broken it yet. So we just want to kind of get it combined. It's starting to all come together now. And It doesn't have to be perfect. And at this point, I want to go ahead and add another cup of flour. I'll get that stirring a little bit again. Okay. And it's probably not all going to come together at this point. So now we can go ahead and sprinkle some flour on our countertop and just move that on the countertop. I like to scrape the bowl, get all the dough. I don't like anything to go to waste. Same goes for the spoon. And I'm going to sprinkle a little more flour. And the goal here is to start kneading the dough until we get to the point that it has a little bit of stickiness to it as far as moisture, but it's not actually sticking to our hands. So I just kind of like to fold it over and just keep adding a little bit as I go. And it's still pretty sticky, so this is where my 1/4 cup or so of flour comes in, but I just kind of do it as I go until the dough feels right. So I'm going to continue kneading it, and now that we're at this point, it's starting to really stay together. I might have a little too much flour, but I just kind of like to go in a circle, and I do have a little flour here that needs to get worked in. See how it's not wanting to stick together. So we're just going to kind of keep working it over here to the side away from our extra flour, and it should come together just fine. I just added in flour a little too quickly. But this process normally takes about 5-6 minutes, not very long. And see, now I feel like it's getting super sticky again. So we're gonna add a little more flour. And I just like to keep kneading it at this point into a ball, because that's the shape we're gonna wanna let it rise in. And at this point, it's still sticky, but I'm not having any dough stick to my hand. So at this point, I think we're good. You press on the dough and see how it quickly springs back. It's not really sticking to my fingers very much. So we can go ahead. We're gonna add a little bit of oil. I like to do it to the top of the dough and just spread it around on the counter. I know some people like to do it in the bowl, but you want your dough to have some oil on it. That way, it doesn't stick to the bowl, and it also helps retain the moisture. So we've got it oiled and in the bowl. We're gonna cover it, let it set for about an hour till it's doubled in size, and then we'll come back and check it. All right, guys, at this point, it's been a little over an hour, and we've about doubled in size. So all we're gonna do is just punch it down and deflate the dough. And we're gonna let it set for about 25 more minutes, and about 25 to 30 minutes, and let it rise. And then we'll go ahead and shape it at that point. So now we can get ready for our last rise. You just need a regular baking sheet pan is fine. And we want to grease our pan just lightly. And I tend to have trouble with my bread sticking a little bit when I make French bread to the pan. So I'm going to put a piece of parchment paper down, and I'm just using some of the olive oil to grease the pan just a smidge. That's sufficient. And then I like to sprinkle just a little bit of cornmeal and that can help with the sticking as well. Okay. So now that is ready. Move that out of the way. And move our sheet pan out of the way. And we will get our dough going. Okay, so now we can go ahead and shape our bread loaf. I'm gonna sprinkle just a little bit of flour, not too much, because we do want our dough to stick together. But as you can see, it has risen back up some. I'm just going to, we're gonna punch it down just a little bit and lift it away from the bowl. Flip it out here. And we just want to take our fingertips and kind of push down until it's about a square. And we are going to fold this initially into a tri-fold. So I'm going to take one side and fold to the middle so it's folded into a third. And I'm just pressing down with my fingertips. And I'm going to take the other side and do the same thing. And you can see that here where it's been pressed down. So then I like to just kind of flatten that out just a little, and we're going to fold it in half. And I'll do that now, and you can see I'm just pinching it down, pushing my fingertips in to make a seal. And I'm going to go ahead and just roll it. Still a little sticky. I'm gonna keep rolling it until it's about the shape that I want. And sometimes I come back in here and just do a little more pinching to finish sealing up those pieces. Sometimes I'll give it a little push together and roll it and push it from the sides. And sometimes I even grab it like that just to get that shape that I want. And I would say we are just about done with the shaping. So we can go ahead, place that here on our pan, give it one more shape. And we're just going to cover this with probably a flour sack towel, or you can use a piece of plastic wrap that's been oiled. But we're gonna let it rise for about 25 minutes while our oven preheats to 375 degrees. We're ready to go ahead and get our bread prepared to go into the oven. I'm gonna start by cracking one egg. And I just want the egg white. And I did not do a good job with that. So let's go ahead and scoop that yolk out and drain off some more of the egg white. Okay. And to the egg white, I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of cold water. Okay. And we just wanna go ahead and beat that a little until it's frothy. So now that our egg wash is prepared, I'm going to uncover our dough, and you can see that it has about doubled in size. And we're going to start by brushing our loaf with the egg wash. And this is just going to help it brown up as it bakes in the oven. And it just gives it a pretty look. Okay. Get these corners over here. And then one of the characteristics that French bread is known for is having some deep slash marks on top. And we just want to make those about 1 inch apart. And as it bakes in the oven, they will just come back up and seal up some. I said 1 inch. This is more like 2 inches apart, but that's okay. Now that we've finished preparing our dough for the oven, we're going to place it into the oven at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for 25 minutes. Okay guys, time's up. Let's see how our bread turned out. Oh, he turned out great. Try to get you an angle there. So we've let our bread cool off for a little bit, and it's just a little warm, but we're gonna go ahead and slice it. It's not the prettiest loaf that I've made before, but it will do. And you can just take a look there. If you enjoyed watching our content, please remember to like, subscribe, and share our YouTube channel. Thank you for joining me at the Hideaway Homestead, and we look forward to seeing you in the kitchen again.